Hi Neil, hello fellow cave dwellers. Manuel here from Paris, France, and I don't usually speak English, so I hope I will be audible. And I hope you won't mind me reading some notes because I don't want to say too much mistakes. So, ever since the event, and we don't want to remember the event, don't we? I wanted to send you and your channel a little video as a small token of appreciation for your hard work in making the lockdown bearable. So I was idling in despair, and my wife had some brilliant ideas to fill the void of my time with some quality activities that would bond our couple around some shared objectives. And that's where disaster struck, when she decided to tackle the bottom drawer of a cupboard. Well, to be honest, most of the bottom drawers were similarly filled with junk electronics that I had squirreled away in the course of the years. While my dirty secrets were now in the open, I might as well treat you, fellow cave dwellers, to a tour of my retro man kitchen, so to speak. I didn't thought of showcasing these machines at first because all the computers I keep handy in my flats are somewhat modern. They all have a LAN connection to my network, and most of my really ancient stuff like early IBM XT80 or PS2 are stored away because they have no practical utility for me here. And I have a marked fondness for beige business machines of old that are not easy to store in a small flat. Therefore, all the computers on this table I used for a purpose, somewhat very small purpose. The Suns were my SMTP/Usenet feed for a long time. The Digital Alpha housed my TV tuner/digitizer. Well, in the analog day. Now the signal has been switched off, so it has no practical utility anymore. The Macintosh G3 connected handily via SCSI to my film scanner back in the day when I was shooting black and white film with my camera. Again, this has become digital now, so no use anymore. The servers were, well, file servers. Before we had NAS the size of a hardcover novel. And recently too, I began collecting subnotebooks at the other end of the size spectrum due to my physical space constraints. But the machine I have picked for this showcase is the Digital Alpha Personal Workstation 433A.
Enjoy your trip.
Oh, I can't wait. Allons-y.
I'm sorry?
It's French, but let's go.
Fascinating.
So, from the outside, there's nothing that can distinguish an Alpha station from a regular mid-90s PC. All the common ports are here, and the enclosure is a masterpiece of brutalist design. what makes an alpha station is completely enclosed, and the only giveaway is the width of the sheet metal of the case, which is enormous. The thing is built like a tank, and there's an impressive RF shielding mesh all around the case, and which is completely uncommon in the x86 world. From the inside, there's nothing again that really jump to the mind, but it certainly feels advanced for the mid-90s. There's even a hint of cable management that will not be seen until the 2000s, mid-2000s. But apart from that, nothing really fancy. And all the hardware inside the case looks like PC, except for small differences we are going to see, because in fact the case was built, and that's the secret, to change persona with half a motherboard. So this is half motherboard of Alpha with processor, cache, RAM, and the infamous chipset, Pyxis chipset made by IBM, which was very buggy, and everything below is strictly PC. And you can find some motherboards that are Pentium Pro based or P2 based. I think the top of the line was P2 Xeon 450 MHz. And you could, in theory, swap that top half of the motherboard and change completely the computer. This was made as an attempt to reduce the costs for Dec. So when I bought this machine, I intended to run Linux. I know some people will probably find it strange because many people who bought those machines later, after they were end of line, wanted to run either through 64 Unix or OpenVMS, but I was in the process of learning Linux, so that's what I wanted to do. And this box is the box you want to have if you want to set foot in the Alpha Station world, because the firmware is split, and you have either the SRM console to boot Linux through 64 Unix, OpenVMS, or, and we'll see that later, ArcBIOS to boot Windows. And this is one of the very rare Dec stations that can boot both without prior flashing the firmware. And this makes it a very, very interesting box to have. So Linux, I won't bother you because it's box standard Debian. I think it's Sarge Debian 4. Support was removed from Debian after Debian 5, so it's an old Linux. As I said, I haven't used this computer in a long time, but when I first had it in the early 2000s, it was still a very fast computer for the days. I think my own PC computer was something like a K5 or K6, and this machine was running loops around, and for instance you can see the terminal is semi-transparent, and this is something you couldn't really do at the time on a PC based computer. And again, I won't bother you. The only program that's still there that is of a certain interest is a game named Cool, which is how can I say, space sumo, where you push balls with a big ball and you encounter bigger balls and you must stay in the arena. Well, anyway, as I said, I won't be bothering you. You noticed, Neil, that I didn't clean the keyboard, and it's in dire need of a good retro bright. But I think that by contrast, the case of the station looks fine, although it might have needed a little cleanup too. So I just put it to avoid some undue maintenance. In order to showcase that computer, I had to decide which system would be best, and I had, after a late night brainstorming session, a brilliant idea. I decided to show the latest Windows version that was released for this hardware. So, Windows installation of Windows 2000 RC2 is ready standard. Officially, the machine never supported Windows 2000 and stayed at Windows NT 4 because this is a sad part of the story of Dec, but Dec released this computer as a last-ditch measure to try to escape killing over, and of course we all know it didn't work. So 1 year after this station was released in 1998, Compaq bought every remnants of Dec and worked hand in hand with Microsoft to finish porting Windows 2K. And maybe 1 month before the official release of Win 2K, they backed out of the deal and they stopped supporting Windows on Alpha hardware. So this is important because at the time, the industry was looking forward to switching 64-bit computing to the new Intel Itanium chip, but there was no other 64-bit ready computing platform available that was suited to develop Windows apart from the Alpha Station. And this is true for Windows, and this is true for Linux, and this is true for a certain number of other operating systems, because like an X86, the Alpha processor is little endian. Microsoft had to use the Alpha as a stopgap measure.
Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
AMD didn't see things that way, and they released an extension, a 64-bit extension to the X86 architecture. And they grabbed the market, and Intel had to follow suit and drop the Itanium. So for a while at Microsoft, there were Alpha Station running 64 bits Windows, and it is rumored that there was a build of Windows 2003 that was created for the Alpha. This is a rumor. So anyway, we have a Windows 32-bit here that doesn't use more than half of the processing power. Another reason to use Linux on the system, because Linux is 64-bit clean. But as you can see, there were many productivity applications that were ported, and the feeling is indistinguishable from Windows. There were some games too, like Quake. This Quake client is bad because you can't resize it and you can't go full screen. I don't know why. It's based on SDL Quake, but it doesn't seem to work. The games that work best is Quake 2, and Quake 2 runs in software render mode in 800 by 600, which is quite the feat. So just imagine in 1997 being able to run this game in software rendering mode at this resolution, and it was totally fantastic, except the mouse I had was a ball mouse, and I had forgotten how much this is unpleasant to game with, and well, I made a mess of myself. But anyway, I'll leave you with those images.